Welcome back everybody, it's time to start coding, so let's bring up Visual Studio. First thing we need to do is load up those three textures that I was showing you before, so add a new folder here for our level textures. And add in some existing items from our CS folder. There's our three textures, load them up, and let's get coding into game one so we can load them. Region, level textures, and region. So public, static, texture 2D, SPR, stage, let's call it stage? Yeah, let's call it stage. Stage 1 BG main, keeping with what our naming convention is in the files as well. BG back, and FG foreground entrance. There's our three textures, let's load them up down here. So SPR stage 1 BG back equal to content dot load texture 2D at textures level stage 1 BG back. With the first one done, we can copy and paste for the next two, which is BG main and foreground entrance. There's our three textures loaded up. So next up, let's take a look-see at our classes. The first one we want to make is the camera class. So add new item, class camera. Cleaning up the namespaces, don't need that one. We do want using Microsoft.xna.framework, so we have access to the vector2. And let's say public static vector2 position and public static vector2 get screen position, so a method called get screen position which takes in a vector2 and will return us with a vector2 taking in a position known as world position and returning us a vector2 which is world position minus camera dot position plus new vector2 game1 dot screen width divided by 2 and game1 dot screen height divided by 2. Why do I have two brackets there? I'm not sure. Either way, they're gone now. So what is this method here doing? It's taking in a world position. This is probably a good idea to talk about world coordinates. So let's bring up our main texture here. Now this is the entire texture, nice and zoomed out, but still the 0, 0 point, the center of the world remains. Our 0, 0 point is going to be in the top left-hand corner of the entire world. So our 0, 0 is there. What this does with our get screen position is if we've got an item, let's say right here on this dot, which we do later on with our foreground item, then we can just tell it to get the world position is right there, but the camera is going to be somewhere else, and it reorients it to make sure that the object which is drawn from this point here is always going to be drawn in the camera position in the right spot, so it looks like it's in the right spot with everything else going as well. For a bigger recap of how that works, go back and check out XNA Extreme Volume 2 in the Precision game, when the camera class was fully in-depth described. For now, let's move on to our actor class. So add new item here, call it actor, or what happened there? I must have double-clicked it accidentally. So now we've got a class called class 1, may as well go with it and just rename it to actor. Then clean up that guy and rename the class to actor. There we go, that's better. We don't need those ones, we just need using Microsoft Now my IntelliSense will work. .xna.framework. Hey. I like little cheat ways like that. And we need graphics. That should be all we need for actor. What else does our actor need? What fields is it going to need? Well, we're going to need to have ourselves a position, which has to be public. And a float for layer depth. And a rectangle for draw area. Remember, for now, our player is just going to be a white box. We need a constructor, public, actor, taking in a vector 2 for position. This dot position equal to position. Draw area equal to a new rectangle of 0, 0, 40, 40. And layer depth, as we said, we're going to explicitly set this one to 0.6f. Why do I have draw area? Go away, draw area. Just draw area. There we go. Let's set up our virtual methods. Public virtual void update. Taking in game time called GT. And public virtual void draw, taking in sprite batch SB, not sprite batch HUD, the one that uses layer depths. And let's put our layer depth to use, sb.draw, using number 6. We're going to be filling our draw area with a single pixel, spread out so it fits inside of what we've got. SPR single pixel, there. Our position is this dot position. Source area or draw area is draw area. Color is color.white. Rotation, don't need any rotation on there. We want it drawn from the top left hand corner. Don't scale it, don't flip it or anything here, so none. And use this dot layer depth. There we go. That's our actor class all taken care of. Now let's make our player class. Clean up the namespaces a bit and get rid of these using Microsoft Microsoft.xna.framework. And that's why I like copy paste. .graphics and .input. So our player is going to need a few things in it. Well, not a few things, it only needs one because most of it's already in the actor. We need one, which I forgot to mention in the implementation just before, was player index, called p-index. So let's make our constructor, public player, taking in our vector 2 for position. And our p-index. So player index is not going to be passed back into our actors constructor because we only want it having position. Because the base, the error which I'm getting here, because I forgot to inherit from actor, there we go. Because the actor class also extends out into the enemy class, and the enemy doesn't need to know what player index it is because it's an enemy and AI controlled item and doesn't need to worry about the gamepad, whereas players do. So this dot p-index equals to p-index that we took in. Let's look at our update call. Public override. Overriding the update. We don't need to pass back because there's nothing happening in there. But now let's just quickly leave that blank and do public override void draw. This one does pass back, so we'll leave that there for now. Now we need to move in desired direction. As I said, I'm going to be pasting or commenting in the keyboard controls and leaving the gamepad controls in. So we'll do it like this. If input helper dot is key held keys dot up. And now with that one, I'll comment it out and let's focus on the gamepad. If input helper dot new gamepad state, passing in our player index, converting it over to casting it over to an int so that it will be recognized by our array. Thumbsticks.left.y is bigger than. Now we need to define a threshold here. It's going to be 0.3f, but that's not quite good enough because now we've got a random magic value in there. Let's change this one to movement threshold, and we'll call that one up here. Const float movement threshold equal to 0.3f. There we go. Whoops, forgot to close that one off. So if we are, what are we doing with our player? This dot position dot y minus equal to 4. We're going to do these one at a time. So if it's down, then left thumbsticks.y is want to be checked for less than negative 0.3. And let's do left next. Keys.left is going to be thumbsticks left in the x direction. Now, x is actually to the negative amount, so negative that way. Minus equal, so that one's in good, except you need to be set to x. And finally to the right. Thumbsticks left dot x is bigger than the threshold, then you want to be plussing it. There we go, so now our up is going to take us up. It's weird, if you press it up in the positive direction on the left thumbstick, that's actually going to mean negative on the screen space. How strange. Keep that in mind, just remember that's how it works. Okay, so there we go. Now in this way, having it set up like this, instead of taking in any kind of vector 2 for our input, we can just check, okay, is it up? Yes it is. Is it down? Yes it is it left or is it right? We've got just 4 directions that we can go in, up, down, left and right. So now we've got our arcade kind of style controls going up and working, and that's pretty cool. So that's our player class taken care of. Let's just quickly save it and build it, see if we've got any weird typos going on. Nothing, because it would have popped up if there was. Just to show you that, in case you don't believe me, we get rid of that. It'll pop up saying you forgot something. So we'll put it there, just for extra screen space. I'm going to get rid of that. And build it again, make sure it's gone. Great, into our level class now. And what do we need to change here? We need to add a few things into the level class. So let's add in our struct that we needed to have first. Struct, I can type properly. Background item. It needed to have a texture 2D called texture. Needed to have a vector 2 for position. Needed to have a float for speed. And a float for layer depth. Now we need to have our constructor which takes in all of these things. So public background item, texture 2D for the texture, vector 2 for the position, float for the speed, and a float for the layer depth. Now let's set up the values. This dot texture equal to texture, this dot position equal to position, this dot speed equal to speed, and this dot layer depth equal to layer depth. That's that one there taken care of. Now we need to draw it, so public void draw. It takes in sprite batch of SB, not SB HUD because it needs to use layer depths, and SB.draw down to number 6 again. It's using this dot texture, this dot position. We want to draw the entirety of our texture, so null for the source rectangle to draw. Color, not applying any color effects to it, so white, 0 rotation on it. Origin, we want it drawing from the top left hand corner. Vector 2.0. Scale, not scaling in or out. Sprite effects, leaving it just as it is. and using this dot layer depth. There we go. What have I missed? What have I missed? Why is there an error? This dot to string. Ha! Nice. This dot texture. And that'll fix both of them up. Okay, that is our background item now taken care of. So let's look at what we need inside our level class. We need to have a list of type background item called backgrounds, a public list of actors of type actor called actors. Now we need to have a public rectangle playbounds. That's that taken care of. This gets confusing for me, so I like to get rid of the struct or hide it away and give me two spaces, so I know it's separate and not part of what we're doing here, not the fields of the level. I can separate the two a bit. Works for me, makes it more readable for me. Do it works for you. Public level, instantiate the two lists. Backgrounds equal to new list of background item. Actors equal to new list of actors, or of actor. That's that taken care of. In the update, what do we need to do? We need to update the actors. Get the camera's new position, so get camera positions, or update camera position. And we need to extend the play area. Here we go. So for actors, we'll just give it a for loop. Actors.count, actors I, pass in the update, and give it game time. Now these two here, update camera position, is going to be done inside another method called update camera position, funnily enough. Which we'll make in just a second, and here we are with extending the play area. So we're going to set this one to the Q button on the keyboard. If input helper dot was key pressed keys.q. What to do, what to do, what to do? We're going to add to play area. How much do we want to do it? Was it 100 or 200? I can't remember. I'm going to go easy and just go 150. There we go. Now the draw call here. Thank you very much, Sprite Batch HUD. You've served your purpose there. It's time for the new one. Let's make these methods first. They're going to annoy me with their little red lines. So private void update camera position and public void add to play area. Int how much to add to it. Okay, updating the camera position. What do we need to do? Let's look back at our code, what we had, or in our implementation. That wasn't it. No, it wasn't the player. It was here. Scrolling down into update camera position. We were going to check if the player was to the right of the camera position. Is the player to the right of the camera position? If it is, we're going to move the camera to the right, but then we're going to limit it and make sure we haven't moved too far away. So let's go back into our code again. Well, how are we going to check if the player is to the right of the camera position? We could call actor 0. That way we're always looking at the player. But what if the player, we've got more than one actor in our actors list and we don't necessarily know that the actor is the base one? Or is the 0 one, the first one in the list? So let's go ahead here and just add in a public player 1, or player, we'll call it player 1. We're going to be populating it later on, same with the play bounds. Let's leave them alone for now and go to the update camera position. So we say if player1.position.x is to the right of camera position.x, then we check it out and we say camera.position.x, so we better move the camera to the right a little bit. But now we've got to check if the camera has gone too far to the right, make sure it's still within the play bounds. camera.position.x plus, how do we do that? We say, okay, we know the camera's position is in the middle of the screen, because that's the center of the camera. If we've got our draw area here of 800 by 600, pretending, and the center of the screen would be right here-ish, we check, okay, here plus screen width divided by 2 is going to give me to the right. So we say game1 dot screen width divided by 2. We check, is that bigger than this dot playbound or play area? I don't know, playbounds dot right. If we are now outside the playbounds, then we'd better set it back up so that we're in the right spot, or within the playbounds. Position.x equals, it's going to equal this dot playbounds dot right minus game1 dot screen width divided by 2. There we go. So if we are too far to the right, then slap us back into the middle of, or just within the limits. On the edge, living on the edge. And back on to add to play area. How do we do this one? We say this dot playbounds dot right plus equal to how much? Well, that was pretty easy. Rightio, so that's those ones there taken care of. Why have I got an error here? Public void. What's wrong with you? What did I put? Minus my what? Wait, right. Ah, whoops. Ha ha ha. Silly me. That's supposed to be width. There we go. Of course, you can only read what right is, whereas we can actually directly play with the width. So let's get ourselves back up here, make sure everything is good within our level class. It is. We've got no problems building it at the moment, so let's close that one there down. Go into our game manager class and actually make some levels here. Now currently this was done in game 1, at the bottom of game 1. Let's just kill that. Whoopsie-doodle. It's gone now. Back in here, let's call it public static void create levels, plural, because we are going to be making more than one level later on. For now, we're just making the one. And let's look at what we need to have in here. Well, first, let's go into our menu manager and make sure it points to the right spot. If we don't know where it is, we can just build and it'll give us an error because it says game 1 doesn't have that method anymore. That's because we moved it over to game manager. Create levels. Now it'll be happy. Saving that one, going back into game manager, closing that, and looking at create levels. What do we want to do in here? Well, let's take a look-see. So what we need to do is say level equal to new level. And we need to load up some backgrounds. So level dot add, forgot to add a method into our level class here. Let's go back into level. And we forgot to add the drawer as well. That was pretty silly. We can't directly access our backgrounds because it is private. There's no other reason for us to have it public. So let's have another private method here after get camera position called public. Public void add background item. It needs to take in a texture 2D called texture. A vector 2 for position, a float for speed, and a float for layer depth. I'm showing you where you can see this is going, which would be backgrounds dot add new background item, texture, position, speed, and layer depth. Rightio, there we go. Now we can add in things from elsewhere. What have I got wrong? Need another brackets. There we go. Okay, that's you. Back into game manager and level. So let's say level 1 backgrounds, level add background item. Which texture we're giving it? Game 1 dot SPL. Let's add in the background one, the far background. Vector 2.0 because we know we want it in the top left hand corner. Speed. I want this one to move slower than the than the main background one. It's going to move at a slower rate across the screen, which is taken care of in its draw call, 0.95f, because we want it drawn at the very backety back. We can say copy this and paste and paste. SPR main and the foreground one, SPR FG entrance. You want to be at 0, that's right, top left hand corner. Your speed wants to be 1. I need you to be drawn on top of the furthest background, so if we make it closer to 0, it's going to be drawn closer to the screen, defined by our game 1 draw call when we're using back to front. And now with the entrance doesn't want to be on 0, 0. It wants to be at new vector 2 739 0. Where did I pluck those values from? Well, let's leave that one there for now and check it out. Here we go. I just happen to know that this little spot right there in the corner where the index finger is currently pointing at happens to be 739 pixels away from the edge, because I can see that by looking at the texture. No, it's in my notes, I've got it written down. But we do want it at the top on Y, so let's set 1 for the speed, so it moves at the normal speed, and we need it drawn from 0.1 for the layer depth, so it's going to be drawn on top of everything else here. We've got 0.95, 0.9, we've got a big gap here in the middle to put anything else we need to, which is where we're going to be putting our players and actors and game items and everything else that we might want to put in there between foregrounds and backgrounds. We've got plenty of space to go there. Let's move it back so you can see lots of it. Okay, and that's our backgrounds loaded up, so let's add in some level 1 actors. Let's say level.actors.add. Now we can add in an actor item, but we can also add in a player. Player needs a starting position. Let's start it off at new vector 2. For now, let's just set it for the center of the screen. Game 1 dot screen width divided by 2. Game 1 dot screen height divided by 2. Ends off that, and we need to pass it in a player index. I've only got one controller plugged into my computer, so I know I want player index.1. Done. I don't like these things going off the edge of the screen, so let's move that guy there and line it up properly. And you can come back there. There we go, that looks nicer. Actually, it still looks kind of horrible, but we get the idea. If we click on the brackets, we can see where it finishes itself. Nice. Okay, so level.player1 needs to be set as well, and we can set that one to level.actors0, because we know there's only one. We just happen to add that first one in right there. We might change that a little bit later on. In fact, let's change it now. Actors, which one do we want it to be? If you want it to be the last actor that you ever just did in there, you can do this. Level.actors.count -1. Count's going to give us, in this case, count is going to give us 1, but if we take that count and subtract 1 from it, it's going to give us 0, which is going to be where we need it to. Now, giving us that error is a bit of a problem. Let's build and look at what it is. We cannot implicitly convert from type actor to a player, so we need to tell it, okay, well, this is a player. And we can do that because we are inheriting from the actor class. There we go, all gone, all taken care of. Nice. Now we need to quickly go levels. Now this capital levels is pointing to the game manager class's levels list. Add in the level that we've just been playing with there. This one, there. Great. We better set the camera position as well. Camera position equals to new vector 2. Let's set it to the screen center as well. Game 1 screen width divided by 2. Game 1 screen height divided by 2. That one will get away with sliding off the edge of the screen. And if you don't like it, we'll move that back one. There we go. Save that. Now that reminds me, well first, how did I pick up, just to know I put it right there, That's because if we've got our 0, 0 over here in the top left hand corner, I might move it across over here so we can, there we go, now we've got something not empty space there. Let's say that our 0, 0 was right here, for instance. Pretend, bear with me. Then our camera position, we know that our height of the entire thing is 800 or 600, so we can say halfway between there, and 800 will probably take us to over here-ish, so we can say halfway between there and there. If we move back across, we know it's the center of our particular spot we want it to be, and that's where I came up with that one. But that reminds me, just back in the draw call of the level, which we haven't done yet, I'm just going to go back into the struct. So expanding out the struct, we forgot to use camera.getScreenPosition. Maybe you didn't, but I sure did. There we go. So now that's going to just not draw it at the position in the world, it's going to draw it on the screen position correctly as well. If we didn't have this, for now we wouldn't actually notice any problems. In fact, we might play around with that in just a moment. Here, when we actually draw it. So the levels draw call needs to draw backgrounds. Count. Backgrounds I. Go typing. Dot draw pass against sprite batch. Draw the actors as well. Actors count, actors I dot draw SB. And hey, look at this. Remember in the 2 videos ago I was saying we needed to have things drawing in a different order than what the code actually shows. In this case here, we're drawing all of the background items. We're drawing both the background and the foreground items, but we want something slotted in between them. In this case, the actors. And we can do that by using layer depths. So there's a good example, perfect example of where you need to use them. Now, what else do we need to do here? We've got the camera's position set up. We've got that. What are we missing? Actor? Actor's not using the camera's position either. He would have just been drawn on the screen no matter where he was. And that should be everything we need there. Let's just quickly save it and build it. Nothing's wrong with it, and if everything goes according to plan, I won't look like a foolish dummy here and miss something silly. Let's press play and see what happens. So here we are on our title screen, pressing start and beginning the game. Woohoo, well, for starters, I've got my thumbstick wrong for the up and down, and my thumbstick's just wrong entirely, and I'm not sure why this guy here is drawing in the wrong spot altogether. Let's go and check it out. It's down quite a bit. So first things first, let's pick up that thumbstick movement. Now up and down. Down needs to be plus. And both of you were moving in the wrong direction, weren't you? Up will take us up. Down will take us down. Less than 0.3 will take me to the left. And more than 0.3 will Y. X. There we go, that'll work for us. That's those ones there done. Let's check out what else was happening here. The camera was doing something funky for us. That's what the camera was doing that I didn't like. Screen width needs to be divided by 2. There we go. It was just offsetting it by 400, or by the full 800. Let's just play now and see what happens. Pressing start, beginning the game. That's much nicer. We've got our player. He can move around with the thumbstick, up, down, left and right, and in the diagonals, and something weird just happened there when I went over the limit of it. So let's close you down. And that was probably because I didn't set any play bounds anywhere. So back into the level here, we can say level.playbounds equal to new rectangle. What do we want this one here to be? What we want this one here to say for the play bounds is let's look at our texture. Where's our left-hand side that we're not allowed to go past? Well, 0. Let's quickly put that in. Back into new. 0. Where's the right hand, or where's the Y that we don't want to go past? Where's the top of our play bounds? That's going to be here, which I just happen to know is set to 422 pixels high. How far away from the left-hand side can we go? How far from 0 across can we go? That's going to be 800, which just is set from game1.screen width. And now from the top to where's the bottom of our play area, it just happens that I know that is 128 pixels. There we go. Now, don't worry about these ones here for now. That's the top and bottom of the play area. Just worry about the 0 and the screen width. So we've got our play area going from 0, from there, 800 pixels across. Now, this should all work perfectly fine this time. Quickly pressing play one more time, just thinking, did I miss anything? Pretty sure I haven't. Let's press play, and everything should work this time. Press start, begin game. There we go. We've got our player, our white box is moving around. Don't worry that he's not restrained to anything just yet. That's not really the purpose. This is the camera we're trying to get set up. As we move to the right, nothing's happening. But if we press the Q key on our keyboard, it's going to move the camera across 150 pixels for us, as it tries to make the player reach the center. Now we're too far away for that to happen just yet, but it'll move a little bit. 150, we'll move it a little bit more, and now we can check out our foreground item working, which is this guy. We can hide behind it, we can go up, and if we check it out where it is, it follows to there. And that's exactly what we wanted to happen. Right there, so as your player moves across, he's going to hide behind there. Now let's not go across that right hand side or the center of the screen and press Q one more time. Now as we move over there, the camera's going to follow us and try and chase us for as long as it can, and then it'll stop because it reached its bounds. Now if we just go over that limit just a little bit, not 150 pixels, and press Q, it's going to move a little bit, and then as the player moves to the right a bit more, it'll move a little bit more. And that's our camera, all nice and set up there. Next thing we want to do in the next video is limit this player onto the play area, so he can't just go all the way around here, and then he can't go off the screen. And we're going to also set it up so our player has two actors or two enemies that we're going to use as dummies, so that we can, instead of setting its layer depth explicitly to 0.6 and having this whole big area to play with, we're going to make sure it dynamically updates itself so it knows which one it's supposed to be on. And you'll see that in action in the next video, guys, so I'll see you there.